If someone had told me vows could echo for those not getting married, I'd have stayed seated. She'd mastered the art of vanishing in plain sight. Helena Vega sat near the back of the reception hall beside a floral display that reeked of too much lavender and fall celebration. No one looked her way, no one ever did. The clink of champagne glasses, the blur of laughter and silk dresses, the soft threads of the string quartet, all of it washed over her like a tide she was never meant to swim in. She was used to this. She'd even dressed the part. Sleek black satin, subtle makeup, her thick dark hair tied in a chignon that said elegant instead of, "Please look closer." Her chair, a sleek matte black design custom-built to blend rather than shine, rested quietly beneath her like it was ashamed of itself. Her hands folded neatly on her lap. Her mouth wore a practiced polite smile, and inside she was counting the minutes until she could leave. This was her cousin's wedding after all. Family, blood. But even blood had a way of turning transparent when people didn't know what to say around you, or when they said too much, too cheerfully, too loudly, and then looked away with pity sparkling behind their eyes. Helena had built empires, crashed glass ceilings with diamond wheels. Her name could move markets, collapse competitors. But in rooms like this, she was still just the woman in the chair, alone, watching, invisible. She took another sip of her champagne, letting the bubbles sting the inside of her mouth just to feel something. That's when she saw her across the room, spinning away from a crowd of relatives, laughing too brightly, her dress the color of wildfire and rebellion. Maya Delgado, the bride's new sister-in-law. Hey, if you're enjoying this story, go ahead and drop a like to help us grow even more, and let me know in the comments. On a scale from 0 to 10, what score would you give this story so far? Your feedback makes all the difference. Helena officially met her yet. She'd only heard snippets. Graphic designer, independent, a bit chaotic, possibly queer, according to her cousin's whispered attempt at being inclusive. Maya didn't walk. She glided like the room existed around her but didn't define her. Her smile wasn't polite. It was sharp, alive, like it could split open the air and let the truth in. Helena stared longer than she meant to. Maya noticed for a second. Their eyes met and Helena panicked, immediately looking down at the champagne in her hand like it held the secrets to gravity. Footsteps approached, heels, purposeful, and then a voice, soft but firm, edged with curiosity and something warmer. "Are you planning to sit here all night, or do you want to cause a little trouble with me?" Helena looked up, startled. Maya was right there, close enough to smell jasmine and vanilla. Close enough to see the dusting of freckles on her cheekbones and the confidence in the tilt of her head. Helena blinked. "Excuse me?" I asked. Maya repeated, grinning. "If you be my date for the night. I'm bored to death and you look like you could use an escape route." Helena stared. "You don't even know me." "Not yet," Maya said, then leaned in slightly. "But I noticed you weren't pretending. Everyone else here is pretending to be someone they're not. You're just watching. That's interesting." Helena's throat tightened. She didn't do spontaneous. She didn't do flirty strangers. She didn't do weddings. But something in Maya's gaze was disarming in the most dangerous way. "I don't dance," Helena said quietly. "Who said anything about dancing?" Maya smirked. "Let's just talk. You and me somewhere less suffocating." A pause. Helena hesitated. She hadn't realized how much she needed someone to see her. Not the chair, not the billions, not the tragic contrast of beauty and brokenness everyone seemed to layer onto her like dust. Just her. "All right," she said. "But if this turns into some pity party, then you can roll over my foot," Maya replied easily, extending her hand. "Deal?" Helena stared at the hand for a beat longer than she should have, then took it. The warmth of Maya's fingers shocked her. Real firm. No hesitation, no awkwardness, just skin on skin, a promise. They maneuvered through the crowd with Maya leading the way, carving space like she belonged there, like Helena belonged with her. As they reached the garden terrace, Helena realized her heart was pounding. Not from nerves, from anticipation, from something dangerously close to hope. Maya leaned against the railing and looked at her. Really looked like she was waiting for Helena to speak first. But Helena didn't know how to start. "You do this often?" she asked finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "Pick strangers in wheelchairs as your +1. Maya laughed. And it wasn't the kind of laugh people used when they were uncomfortable. It was real, unfiltered. "No. But tonight felt like a good night to break the rules. And you didn't look like a stranger. You look like someone worth knowing. Helena swallowed. The night air was cool, but her skin was suddenly hot. Maya turned to face her fully. Tell me something real. Helena Vega. Not the press release version, the version. And Helena, against every wall she'd built, against every instinct to keep herself guarded, heard herself say, I hate weddings, but right now I'm glad I came to this one. Maya's smile softened. Me, too. And in that moment, the noise of the world faded. Just two women, a terrace, a promise hanging unspoken between them. Helena followed Maya down a winding stone path that led away from the lights of the reception and into the quieter, darker corners of the estate. The wedding was being held at some overpriced countryside vineyard that screamed rustic sophistication. All manicured hedges and ivy-covered terraces. Helena had barely noticed it when she arrived. She hadn't planned on staying long enough to care. But now, trailing just behind Maya and the soft rustle of her red dress in the breeze, the world suddenly felt full of texture and possibility. Maya didn't talk much as they walked. She just threw the occasional glance over her shoulder to make sure Helena was keeping up. And Helena appreciated that. No fake concern, no over-explaining, just two women in motion, stepping outside of a world that never quite knew what to do with either of them. They reached a secluded gazebo at the edge of the vineyard, framed by fairy lights and the deep hum of nighttime insects. A few lanterns flickered along the wooden beams, casting soft shadows on the gravel path. Maya turned and faced her, her expression unreadable for the first time. Do you ever wonder what it would be like to just disappear for a while? She asked. Helena cocked her head intrigued. You mean like fake your death and start over, kind of disappear, or just turn off your phone for a weekend? Somewhere in between, Maya said, stepping into the gazebo and perching herself on the low wooden railing. I mean disappearing from expectations, from assumptions, from the way people look at you like they've already decided what kind of story you're allowed to have. Helena wheeled closer, her hands tightening slightly on the rims. That question hit her like a quiet storm. All the time, she murmured. I built an empire just to prove I could. And yet every room I enter, people still see the chair before they see me. If they even bother to look past it. Maya didn't interrupt. She just watched her calm and open, like Helena's words mattered. Like she mattered. What if? Maya said slowly. You didn't have to prove anything tonight. What if you could just be? Helena met her gaze, something tender and dangerous unfurling behind her ribs. I don't know who I am when I'm not proving something, she admitted. Maya smiled soft and slow. Then let's find out together. The way she said it, an invitation, not a dare, made Helena's stomach twist with something that tasted like longing. Silence stretched between them, not empty but alive. It pulsed. It breathed. What about you? Helena asked, shifting the light off herself. You glide through that reception like you own the place, then bolt out here like you're hiding. What are you running from? Maya leaned back, eyes on the stars. A family that talks over me and never listens. A million expectations, who I should date, what job I should have, how I should be more like my perfect brother. And tonight? A wedding that feels like theater instead of joy. She paused, then added, also, my ex is here with her new fiancé. So, there's that. Helena blinked. Ouch. Yeah, Maya exhaled. So when I saw you, elegant, alone, quietly judging everyone, I thought, that woman gets it. Helena laughed before she could stop herself. A real laugh. It startled her. Maya's eyes lit. There it is, she said. That's what I was looking for. What? Helena asked, smile lingering. Your laugh. It's kind of addictive. Helena shook her head, trying to steady the flutter in her chest. You're dangerous. Only in the best ways, Maya murmured, her voice gone velvet soft. The air between them charged. Helena didn't lean in, she didn't need to. Maya took one step, then another, until she stood right in front of her chair, looking down with a gaze that made Helena forget how to breathe. May I? Maya asked, her fingers hovering near Helena's hand, but not touching. Helena hesitated. The last woman who touched her like that had also looked at her with pity wrapped in seduction. She'd never trusted a touch since, but Maya's eyes held no pity, only curiosity and want, so Helena nodded. Maya's fingers found hers, warm, steady, and Helena felt it like a current shooting straight up her spine. You're shaking, Maya said softly. I'm not used to people touching me without expectations, Helena replied. Or apologies. Maya tightened her grip just enough to say you're safe. Then let me be the first to say I'm not here out of pity or curiosity. I'm here because you're the most fascinating woman I've met in a long, long time. And I didn't want to leave tonight without knowing your voice, your mind, your laugh. Helena swallowed hard. You barely know me yet, Maya whispered. Helena felt something snap inside her. Not break open. She wanted to say something, anything, but her throat was too full. Maya, sensing the shift, gently let go and stepped back, giving her space. Come on, she said, voice light again. There's an orchard behind the vineyard. You game? I thought you wanted to escape the wedding, not get lost in the wilderness, teased. Maybe I want to get lost with you, Maya replied, throwing her a wink. And just like that, Helena wheeled forward, her pulse thawing, her body remembering what hope felt like. For the first time in years, she wasn't trying to leave early. She was chasing the night. The orchard was quieter than the garden. A dozen rows of apple trees stretched into the shadows, their branches heavy with late summer fruit, the air thick with the scent of sugar and earth. Moonlight dripped down through the leaves like spilled milk, softening every edge, washing the world in silver. Maya slowed her steps as she reached the first row, turning to watch Helena navigate the uneven path. It was gravel at first, then transitioned into dirt, uneven, slightly sloped, not exactly built for wheels. But Helena was used to places that weren't built for her. She handled her chair with the kind of silent precision that came from years of having no other choice. Still, Maya's gaze lingered, not with worry, but with quiet admiration. You okay? She asked, her voice low, no trace of condescension. I've done boardroom presentations while in post-surgical pain and negotiating with oil executives. Helena muttered, pushing over a route. I think I can handle an apple tree or two. Maya smiled, falling into step beside her. You always like to lead with your resume. Old habits, said sometimes it's easier to talk about the empire than the body. Maya didn't flinch. But I'm not asking about the empire. I'm asking about you. Helena turned her face away, pretending to study the trees. Why? Because I like the way you think, the way you speak, the way you don't try to shrink yourself to make people comfortable. Helena laughed, dry and bitter. You're assuming I have the option to shrink. Maya stopped walking. No, I'm saying you refuse to make yourself small for a world that doesn't know how to hold you. The words settled on skin like warm hands. She looked at Maya, then really looked at the firelight of her eyes, the storm beneath her calm. You're too poetic for someone who escaped a wedding. Blame the orchard, Maya said, stepping closer. It's the moonlight. It makes everything feel like a secret. Helena's chair came to a gentle stop beside one of the wider trees, its roots carving a curve into the ground. She braced her hand on the trunk for balance and adjusted her posture. The effort was small but deliberate. And Maya noticed, not the movement, but the ownership of it. I don't know what this is, Helena said, her voice softer now. But it's fast, and I don't do fast. We don't have to name it, Maya replied. We just have to feel it. There was a long beat. Then Helena whispered, I feel it. Maya stepped in. Just one step, enough to close the space between them. She didn't lean, didn't grab. Just stood close enough for Helena to feel the heat of her. May I? Maya asked again, always asking, always waiting. Helena's pulse raced. Yes. Maya reached out, tucking a loose strand of hair behind Helena's ear. Her fingers were feather-light, reverent. Helena exhaled slowly. Why me? She asked. Tonight, of all people, of all places, why walk toward the woman in the corner? Maya's hand dropped, but her eyes never wavered. Because I saw you, and I didn't want to look away. Their faces were inches apart. The air between them charged and trembling. Maya leaned in. Helena tilted her chin. Their lips were about to meet. And then the unmistakable crunch of footsteps on dry leaves. They both froze. Maya turned first, her body instinctively shifting to block Helena's from view. A figure emerged from the darkness between the trees. A tall woman in a tight emerald dress clutching a half-empty wine glass like a weapon. Her hair was perfect. Her smile wasn't, well, the woman said, her voice slick with alcohol and something sour. If it isn't the elusive Maya Delgado. And look at that. She found herself a pet project. Helena's stomach dropped. Maya's expression turned to stone. Not now, Sloane. Oh, I think now is the perfect time, Sloane replied, taking another step closer. I mean, I've been watching you slink around this party all night, and I just knew you'd end up somewhere dramatic. But this? She looked up and down. Really, Maya? Helena's hands tightened on her wheels. Maya's jaw clenched. You're drunk and you're desperate. Sloane snapped. God, it's pathetic. You couldn't stand seeing me with Evan, so now you're out here making eyes at. Stop. Maya said sharply. Sloane blinked. What? Leave now. Why? Is she going to run me over? Sloane smirked. Helena's breath caught. But before she could say a word, Maya stepped fully in front of her, voice low and lethal. You don't get to talk to her like that. You don't get to look at her like that. Not after what you did to me. Not after the way you made me feel small for years just so you could feel big. Sloane faltered. The wine sloshed in her glass. Wow. So, she's your savior now. Your little trauma cleanser. No, Maya said, she's the first person who made me want to be seen again, and you're not ruining that. Silence fell. Thick, cold. Then Sloane laughed, bitter and brittle. You always were dramatic, she said, then tossed the rest of her wine into the grass and turned away. Good luck, Maya. You're going to need it. When she disappeared into the dark, Maya let out a slow breath and turned back to Helena. I'm sorry. Helena was quiet. Her eyes were unreadable. Is she your ex? Was Maya said a long time ago? It was toxic. I was a mess. Helena nodded slowly. She still knows how to hit your wounds. She's good at that, Maya admitted. But you made me feel like I could breathe again. And I didn't want a night to end like that. Helena studied her. The tension, the fear, the honesty, and slowly she reached out, taking Maya's hand. It hasn't ended yet, she said. Maya smiled, shaky but real. Then let's start over. Okay, Helena whispered. Let's start here. They re-entered the house under a canopy of strained silence and lingering adrenaline. Maya's hand remained loosely intertwined with as they moved back toward the reception area, which had quieted considerably. The drunken chaos of the early evening had mellowed into soft jazz and scattered conversations, with only the truly intoxicated still spinning on the dance floor. The scent of champagne and frosting hung heavy in the air. Helena hated the way her heart was still pounding. Not because of Sloane's words, though they'd burned, but because of how much she cared that Maya had stood up for her. It had been so long since anyone had chosen her. Not because they had to, not out of guilt or social obligation, but simply because they wanted to. Maya didn't glance around nervously as they passed through the lingering crowd. She didn't shrink or avoid eye contact. She walked beside Helena like she belonged there, like they belonged there. And that did something to Helena's ribs that no billionaire meeting, no empire, no victory ever had. It made her feel visible, wanted, seen. I think we need drinks, Maya muttered, nodding toward the bar. And maybe something stupid to distract us. Stupid? Helena asked, arching a brow. You don't strike me as the reckless type. Maya grinned. You haven't seen me after wedding cake. They reached the bar and Maya ordered them both a glass of champagne. Helena rarely drank more than a sip or two in public. Liquor made her skin feel unpredictable. Her body a little less manageable. But tonight wasn't public. Tonight felt private even in a crowd. She accepted the glass. So what's your idea of stupid? She asked, taking a small sip. Maya's eyes flicked toward the far side of the hall, where a group of guests had gathered around a low table filled with half-empty glasses and cards. They're playing Truth or Dare. Helena narrowed her eyes. Are we in high school? Emotionally, probably. Maya grinned. Come on, we won't stay long. We'll just blend in, pretend to be mildly social, and then slip out again when everyone's too tipsy to notice. You're very bad at pretending to be boring, Helena said, but followed her anyway. As they approached the circle, someone shouted, New blood. And made room. A few of the guests, mostly in their 20s, a mix of cousins, friends of the groom, a couple of overly enthusiastic bridesmaids, cheered as Maya and Helena joined the group. No one said anything about the chair. No one stared. Whether out of distraction or decency, Helena didn't know, but she was grateful for the momentary anonymity. Maya introduced them both simply. This is Helena. She's smarter than all of us. Be warned. Helena rolled her eyes but smiled. They sat Maya cross-legged on a cushion. Helena just beside her, her hands on her wheels, back straight. The game began innocently enough. Silly dares, embarrassing truths. Who kissed who? Who snuck off during the rehearsal dinner? Who secretly hated the best man? Helena kept quiet, content to observe. Maya was magnetic, laughing easily, her eyes flicking to now and then with a quiet heat that made Helena's spine tingle. Eventually, someone turned to Helena. A woman in pink heels and a high ponytail. "Your turn," she said, grinning. "Truth or dare?" Helena hesitated. "Truth." "Boo." Someone teased. "Too safe. Let her live," Maya said, smirking. The woman in pink leaned forward. "Okay, Helena. What's the most reckless thing you've ever done for love?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Helena's fingers curled slightly against her chair. Her jaw tightened. Maya looked at her gently, sensing the shift. "I built someone a company," Helena said quietly. "From the ground up, funded every dollar, gave her power she didn't earn, trusted her with everything." "Wow." Someone said, "What happened?" Helena looked down at her hands. "She left, took half of it, and told the press I was too broken to run anything without her." The silence that followed was heavy. Maya's eyes darkened. "You don't have to." "I want to," Helena said, looking at her. "Because if you're going to keep asking to see me, then I need to stop hiding the parts that still sting." Maya nodded once, like a promise. "Then I'm going next," she said, her tone sharper now. "Truth." Someone leaned in. "Maya, have you ever fallen in love with someone you weren't supposed to?" Maya didn't look away from Helena. "Yes." "Who?" the bridesmaid asked eagerly. "I think I'm looking at her," Maya said. Gasps, laughter, teasing noises erupted around them, but Helena couldn't hear any of it. Her pulse roared in her ears. Her heart stuttered in her chest. Maya's gaze was unwavering, steady, and full of something wild and real. Helena exhaled. Her voice, when it came, was horsero. "I need air." "Let's go," Maya said immediately, rising to her feet and waiting without rushing. Helena turned her chair and headed toward the veranda. Maya at her side. Once they were alone, Helena stopped. Her hands were shaking. "That was too much?" Maya asked. "Not from you," Helena said. "Just I wasn't ready." Maya stepped closer. "I didn't say it to corner you or pressure you. I meant it. I see you, Helena. And it scares the hell out of me." Too, Helena met her eyes. "You see me, but do you know what that means? To really be with someone like me, someone brilliant, gorgeous, unapologetic." "Yeah, I think I'm starting to." "You think," Helena said, "but you don't know what it's like to need help on bad days, to be stared at, to be dismissed. You don't know what it's like to carry this body through a world that pretends it's not built for you." "Then tell me," Maya said softly. "Let me learn." Helena swallowed hard. Her defenses were shaking, crumbling. She didn't want this. But Maya made it so easy, so dangerous, so alive. And then Maya leaned in slow, deliberate, asking without words. This time Helena didn't move. Her breath caught. Maya's lips brushed hers. Gentle waiting. Helena kissed her back. Finally, and it wasn't tentative. It wasn't safe. It was a declaration. A claiming when they broke apart. Both were breathless. Helena rested her forehead against Maya's. "I'm terrified," she whispered. Maya smiled. "Me too. But I've never wanted anything more." The morning sunlight sliced through the thin hotel curtains, casting sharp lines across Helena's face as she blinked awake. For a moment, she forgot where she was. The faint scent of roses and wood polish clung to the linens. A distant echo of laughter drifted in through the window. Brunch maybe, or some leftover celebration from the wedding still trickling into the daylight. Then the memories came crashing back. The orchard, the game, the kiss. Maya. Helena lay still, letting it all wash over her. Her lips still tingled where Maya had kissed her. Her chest was still tight from the weight of things she hadn't let herself feel in years. She ran a hand down her arm, grounding herself. The room was too quiet, too sharp. Reality always had a way of scraping at the edges of something beautiful. Helena sat up slowly, maneuvering herself from the bed to her chair with practiced efficiency, her body aching in familiar, quiet ways. She didn't see. She didn't complain. Her body was what it was, a machine she'd long ago learned to operate with precision, even when it felt fragile inside. She wheeled herself to the vanity, staring into her reflection. Her dark eyes were heavy, rimmed with a kind of vulnerability she usually kept under lock and key. She wasn't used to softness. She was used to being wanted for power, for prestige, for proximity to influence, not for the way she laughed, or the sharpness of her mind, or the shape of her mouth when she was trying not to smile. She wasn't used to someone like Maya. Her phone buzzed. A message. Maya Delgado, still thinking about that kiss. Can I bribe you with coffee to talk about it? Meet me in the Garden Cafe in 30. Helena stared at the screen. Her thumbs hovered. She wasn't ready. She was too ready. She typed, then deleted, then typed again. Maya, you can try. 35 minutes later, Helena arrived at the Garden Cafe nestled behind the main hotel building. It was quieter than expected. Only a few guests scattered between the rose bushes and wrought iron tables, sipping lattes in oversized sunglasses, pretending they weren't hungover. Maya was already there, sitting beneath a tree, sunlight catching in her hair. She was wearing a soft white blouse tucked into dark jeans, casual but polished. She looked up as Helena approached, and her smile bloomed like it had been waiting all morning just for this. You came, Maya said, standing to pull a chair aside so Helena could roll into place. You bribed me, Helena said, voice even while her pulse raced. You didn't even ask how I take my coffee. I figured you for a triple shot, no foam, light on sweet, Maya replied. Helena blinked. Correct. Maya slid the cup across. I'm an excellent guesser. Helena sipped. The quiet that followed wasn't awkward, it thrummed, expectant. So, Maya said, fingers laced on the table, about last night. Helena arched a brow. Which part? The ex, the confessions, or the kiss? All of it, Maya said. None of it was planned. I don't regret a second. Helena stared into her cup. It felt big. Too big. It was, Maya admitted. Sometimes the right things are. Doesn't mean we rush. I just want to know where your head is. Helena hesitated. I don't date. Not really. I don't trust easily. I've been used, paraded, turned into someone's charity project more times than I can count. I built walls so no one could do it again. Maya didn't flinch. And last night? You cracked something, Helena said. I don't know if I'm ready for whatever spills out. Maya reached across, palm up, patient, waiting. Helena studied her hand a long beat, then placed her own in it. Then let it spill, Maya said softly. I'm not here to fix you. I want to know you. Helena's throat tightened. You always say the right things. I say what I mean, Maya corrected. That's new, Helena whispered. It shouldn't be, Maya answered. They sat with hands clasped, the air filled with birdsong and distant brunch chatter. Tell me something true, Helena said suddenly. Something I don't know yet. Maya looked away, a small frown tugging at her mouth. Okay. Truth, I wasn't just dodging my ex last night. I was dodging the pressure, the constant questions about why I'm not settled, why I don't have a real career, why I keep ruining good things. Helena tilted her head. And do you? Sometimes, Maya admitted. When it feels real, I get scared. I sabotage. I run before anyone can leave me first. Helena was quiet. So we're both broken. No, Maya said, steady. We're both human. And maybe we're exactly the kind of people who need each other. Helena exhaled. The weight on her chest eased a fraction. This doesn't feel like something you just walk away from in the morning. I don't plan to, Maya said, giving her hand a gentle squeeze. For the first time in a long while, Helena let herself believe it, not completely, not forever, but enough. Enough to stay. Enough to hope. The city was already humming when they stepped back into it. It wasn't far from the vineyard, just 20 minutes inland, tucked between two sleepy hills and a handful of overpriced bakeries that survived on wedding guests and rich retirees. Maya had insisted on the detour. Just an hour, she'd said, her eyes bright. There's somewhere I want to show you. Helena said yes. Not because she needed more coffee, not even because she was curious. But because Maya had looked at her with that quiet urgency again. That need to be understood, to share something real. And Helena couldn't look away from that. They walked in silence for a few minutes. Maya slowed her pace to match Helena's rhythm, never rushing ahead, never falling behind. It wasn't pity, it was instinct, and noticed every little thing. The way Maya adjusted her body to make space. The way she didn't comment when Helena chose the curb ramp instead of the stairs. The way she let the world shape itself around them without making it a performance. Where are we going? Helena finally asked. Maya pointed ahead. There it was. A mural. A massive wall covered in color. Hundreds of names scrolled across a sunburst design. Tiny messages tucked between swirling brush strokes. At the center, two women held hands, faceless but unmistakably lovers, their bodies half blended into the light behind them. Helena stared. "You did this years ago," Maya said, her voice quiet. "Before the gallery jobs, before the commissions, I was crashing on a friend's couch and painting at night to keep from losing my mind. This wall saved me. It was the first time I put something out into the world without apologizing for how much of myself it held." Helena wheeled closer. The brushwork was raw. Beautiful. Wounds turned into sunlight. "You're incredible," she whispered. Maya smiled. But before she could respond, a voice rang out behind them. "Oh my God, you're Helena Vega." Helena turned. Two women, maybe late 20s, were walking past, phones already in hand. One of them looked breathless. "I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt, but you're the Helena Vega, right? The tech genius, the crypto queen." Helena straightened slightly, her spine instinctively snapping into CEO mode. "I am. We followed the court case. The one with your ex. You are amazing. Ruthless. We talk about it in our business class." Maya stepped back a little watching. Helena nodded politely. "Thank you. Can we get a picture with you?" The other woman asked, already moving closer. "My followers will lose it." Helena hesitated. Her body was tired. Her guard was up. She didn't want Maya to see her like this on display. But she'd said yes to worse things. "Sure," she said. She smiled for the photo, gave them 15 seconds of polite small talk. Then they left, giggling down the sidewalk, and when Helena turned back, Maya wasn't smiling. "That happened a lot?" she asked. "People recognizing you sometimes?" Helena's voice was guarded. "Now, you look different?" Maya said carefully. "When they approached, you changed." Helena shrugged. "It's part of the job. But you hated it. Does it matter?" Helena snapped, sharper than she meant to. Maya blinked. "It does to me." "Why?" "Because I don't know who you are when you're like that. Cold. Removed. And I like the Helena who kissed me under the stars, not the one who poses for strangers and shuts down after." Helena's jaw clenched. "You wanted the truth." "The truth is I've spent years being someone people could trust with millions. That doesn't leave room for softness or mess." "I'm not asking you to be soft for everyone," Maya said, her voice rising now. "Just for me, maybe I don't know how." The words came out like broken glass. Maya stepped closer. "Then let me help you." "Why do you care so much?" Helena said, her voice cracking. "You barely know me. One night, a kiss. And now you're suddenly the expert on who I am." Maya didn't flinch, but her expression shifted. Hurt, confused, defensive. "Because I saw you," she said. "And I thought you saw me, too." Helena looked away. "Maybe I was wrong." Silence. A deep, terrible silence. Maya stepped back. "You're scared. I get that. But don't punish me for something I haven't done. You don't understand what it's like to have your entire identity turned into a headline." Helena said, to be reduced to the woman in the chair or the lawsuit or the scandal. "You're right." Maya said, "I don't. But I do know what it's like to be lied to be left. To be made to feel like I'm too much and never enough all at once. I know what it's like to choose someone who doesn't choose me back." Helena winced. "Maya." "No," Maya said, holding up a hand. "I'm not walking away. Not yet. But I won't chase you through a wall you won't even let me knock on." Helena stared at her. Something inside her twisted painfully. She wanted to reach out to explain, but all the old instincts kicked in. "Lock it down. Look composed. Don't need. Don't want. Don't break." Maya took a slow breath. "I'll be at the hotel. If you want to talk, you know where to find me." She turned and walked away, her shoulders tense. Helena sat there for a long time, the mural at her back, the street moving around her like a storm. She couldn't stop. The sun burned a little too bright now. Her coffee had gone cold. And for the first time in a long time, Helena didn't feel powerful. She felt like a woman who just watched the best thing in her life walk away and didn't know how to bring her back. Helena had never paced before. Not in the literal sense, but as the wheels of her chair traced the smooth floor of the hotel suite for the 5th time, she realized it was the closest she'd ever come to it. The room was sterile, expensive, impersonal, white orchids in a glass vase, a mini bar she hadn't touched, her phone buzzing unanswered beside an untouched plate of breakfast. None of it grounded her. None of it gave her the words she needed. Maya's voice still echoed inside her head. Don't punish me for something I haven't done. Helena closed her eyes. She hadn't slept, hadn't eaten, and for once not out of work, but because she'd said things she didn't mean to someone who didn't deserve them. Maya had shown up for her in the orchard, in the cafe, again and again. And had chosen fear over truth. She always did. But last night, watching Maya walk away, shoulders tight with the weight of disappointment, something had broken open in her chest. Something stubborn, something sharp. She didn't want to lose her. Not because of reflexes, not because of pride. With a shaking breath, Helena grabbed her phone and checked the message she typed and retyped at least 5 times. Helena, I said the wrong things. Can we talk? Sent. Seen. No reply. She didn't wait. She rolled out of the room into the elevator and down the corridor until she was outside Maya's suite. Her hand hovered over the door. She hesitated, heart throbbing, then knocked. Nothing. Her stomach twisted. She knocked again. Finally, footsteps. The door cracked open, and Maya stood there barefoot, her eyes tired, her hair pulled up in a messy knot. She wore an oversized shirt Helena didn't recognize, probably borrowed. She looked beautiful in a way that made Helena ache. I didn't think you'd come, Maya said. I didn't think I'd be brave enough, Helena admitted. But I am. Maya stepped back, silent permission. Helena rolled in slowly, taking in the space, soft lighting, half-read book on the armrest, and untouched coffee on the table. I wanted to call, Helena said, stopping in the center of the room. But I didn't know if I deserved your voice after the things I said. Maya didn't speak. She folded her arms and waited. Helena took a breath. You were right. I'm scared. I built my whole life around being untouchable, unshakable, because I thought that's how I had to survive. Every time I've let someone close, it's cost me more than they'll ever know. And I don't know how to trust that you won't be another loss. Maya's eyes softened, but she didn't move. Do you think I'm here just to hurt you? Helena shook her head. No, that's the worst part. I think you're here for the right reasons. I just don't know if I know how to let that in. Maya walked closer, not touching, just near enough for Helena to feel her presence. Then start with one thing, she said gently. Tell me one real thing you want from me right now. Helena looked up and her voice cracked. I want you to stay. Maya's face softened. Okay. She sat on the couch and patted the space beside her. Helena wheeled closer, parked, and turned to face her. You scare me, she said. Because when you look at me, I don't feel like a symbol or a headline or a cautionary tale. I feel like me. And I don't remember the last time I liked who that was. Maya reached over and took her hand. I like her. I like her a lot. The silence was warm this time. Full of the things neither had words for. Helena's thumb brushed Maya's knuckles. I want to try, she said. Not just this weekend, not just the moment. I want more. If you do, too. Maya smiled. I do. They sat there for a long time. Close but unhurried, the room thick with peace and promise until the knock. A sharp unexpected knock on Maya's door. Both women froze. Maya stood and opened it. Helena couldn't see who it was, but she heard the voice. Cold, familiar, calculated. Well, that didn't take long. Helena's blood turned to ice. Maya stepped aside, confused, revealing the visitor. A woman in a tailored navy blazer, hair slipped back, lips curled in a cruel smile. Vivian, Helena breathed. The woman stepped inside without asking. Hello, darling. I saw your name trending again. Figured you'd be hiding somewhere romantic. Imagine my surprise to find this. Maya blinked. I'm sorry. Who? Helenel's voice was low. She's my ex. Vivian smirked. Ex-fiancé technically, but who's counting? Maya stepped protectively between them. What do you want? Vivian's eyes sparkled with cruelty. I want to talk to Helena about some pending business. Some documents she forgot to finalize before disappearing. Helena's jaw clenched. This isn't the time. It is if you want to keep your name out of the press again, Vivian purred. You know how fast things spread. A photo here, a comment there. Maybe I tell the world about the NDA breach. The company you built on stolen code or the little offshore account you once asked me to get out. Maya snapped. Vivian turned slowly. Excuse me. You heard me, Maya said, voice shaking but firm. Whatever this is, you don't get to come into this room and threaten her. Not now. Not ever. Vivian raised an eyebrow. How sweet. Protecting the poor broken billionaire. She looked high up and down with disgust. Still letting everyone believe you're the victim. Helena didn't move. Didn't blink. But her voice was still. You're going to leave or I'm going to call security. And the next time you come near me with a threat, I'll remind you who taught who how to play dirty. Vivian's smile faltered just for a second. Then she turned, hair whipping behind her. This isn't over, she hissed, slamming the door behind her. Silence fell. Helena's breathing was shaky. Maya crossed the room, knelt beside her, hands hovering but not touching. Are you okay? No, said, but I'm glad you were here. Maya reached up and cooped her cheek. You don't have to go through any of that alone anymore. Helena leaned into the touch. Just a little. I'm not sure how to let you fight for me. You don't have to let me, Maya said. I already am. Helena didn't sleep again. Not even after Maya curled up beside her on the couch, arm draped protectively across her lap. Both of them cloaked in a silence too thick to cut. Vivian's visit had poisoned the air. Not just with her threats, but with what she represented. The life Helena had built to survive now dragging itself back to devour everything she'd started to hope for. Around 4 a.m. Helena wheeled herself to the balcony and sat in the cool pre-dawn breeze. Below the vineyard slept under silver fog, vines curling like secrets around the hills. Her mind was burning. She'd worked too hard to lose everything again. But more than that, she wouldn't let Maya be dragged through her damage. And yet, every instinct she had whispered to push her away, protect her, spare her, leave before she leaves you. But Maya wasn't leaving. Not yet. When morning finally came, Helena made a decision. She was going to confront it. All of it. She just didn't realize that doing so would tear a hole in everything she and Maya had started to build. Maya sipped her coffee slowly, perched on the hotel bed, still wrapped in a robe and watching Helena dress in silence. The tension was different now, more cautious than cold, like they were both holding their breath. You're really going to meet her? Maya finally asked. Helena nodded, slipping her blazer over her shoulders. Vivian doesn't bluff. If I don't contain her, she'll escalate. She threatened you, Maya said, frowning. She threatened us. And now you're just going to walk into a private meeting with her. I'm not walking. Helena said flatly, then softened. And I won't be alone. I called my attorney. He's meeting me in the city. Maya's jaw tensed. You still haven't told me what she has on you. Helena adjusted her watch. Because if I say it out loud, I make it real. It is real, Maya said. And I'm already in it. So stop pretending this is about protecting me and tell me the truth. Helena sighed long. Heavy. Vivian helped me start one of my earliest companies. I gave her access to everything, emails, finances, code, even offshore assets. Offshore? It wasn't illegal, Helena said quickly. Just aggressive, risky, and Vivian knew how to spin it. So she's threatening to go public. She's threatening to claim she was coerced. Helena said that I manipulated her. That the power dynamic made consent impossible. That I left her with nothing after the breakup, which isn't true, but if she controls the narrative, it won't matter. Maya's heart dropped. Do you think she'd really do that? I know she would. Helena's voice was ice. She's already planted rumors, articles, anonymous sources. I can't afford another scandal. Not now. Maya stood. Then let me come with you. No, why not? Helena turned to face her. Because if she sees you, she'll go after you next. She'll twist everything. She'll call you my rebound, my distraction. My mistake. I don't care what she says. But I do, Helena said, voice rising. I can't drag you into this mess. You don't know how brutal it gets when it starts unraveling. Maya stepped closer. I don't want protection. I want partnership and I want to keep you. Helena snapped. But I won't do it by feeding you to someone like her. Maya flinched. So what are you cutting me out now? Is this the part where you pull away to save me because you're scared of being chosen? Helena's silence said enough. Maya took a step back. Wow. You really don't get it. I didn't fall for Helena Vega, the billionaire. I fell for the woman under all that armor. But if you're going to lock me out every time, it gets hard. It's not about locking you out. Helena shouted. It's about surviving. Maya stared at her, eyes glistening. Then I guess I'm just one more thing you survive. Maya turned, grabbed her keys, and left. The meeting with Vivian was as vile as Helena expected. Her ex showed up at the law firm wearing power heels and poison lipstick, tossing out smug smiles and legal jargon like confetti. Helena said almost nothing. Her lawyer handled the rest, pushing for clarification, recording every threat, narrowing the options. It didn't take long for Vivian to slip, to admit she had no documents, just screenshots, implications, bitterness dressed in strategy. The lawyer promised to file an injunction and a defamation warning. Vivian's smile cracked just for a second. Then she left, venom still clinging to her heels. But Helena didn't feel like she'd won. She felt empty because she'd built this fortress of logic of contracts and counterattacks, but it didn't protect her from the thing that mattered. Maya was gone. It was late when Helena returned to the hotel. Her body ached, her spine screamed. Her arms trembled from hours of strain, but none of it compared to the silence waiting in the room. Maya hadn't come back. Her things were gone. Just the book on the armrest remained. Helena rolled toward it, staring down at the open page. A sticky note sat inside. You don't have to protect me from your past. But if you keep choosing fear over us, eventually I won't be there to choose at all. See? Helena's heart broke so quietly it didn't even make a sound. She closed the book, let it rest against her chest, and whispered into the dark, "Please don't give up on me." Helena Vega wasn't used to silence. Her world was one of noise. Contracts, negotiations, click-clack heels in glass offices, headlines blaring her name in bold font. Noise was armor. Noise was power. But now, alone in that empty hotel suite, all she had was silence. And it was deafening. Maya was gone. She left with a warning, not a door slam. With care, not rage. That was worse. Helena had faced boardrooms full of men who wanted to see her fail. And she never blinked. But this quiet ache behind her ribs, this emptiness in a room that once held laughter and something dangerously close to peace. It was breaking her in ways no scandal ever could. She stared at the sticky note again. If you keep choosing fear over us, eventually I won't be there to choose at all. She ran a hand through her hair, the exhaustion hitting in full. Maya had asked for partnership. She'd asked for honesty, and Helena had given her distance and control. She thought she was protecting her, but she wasn't. She was protecting herself. And now she was alone again. Unless she did something she'd never done before. Unless she stopped treating love like a negotiation. Helena grabbed her phone and called her assistant. "I need the contact from Ava Chen at Channel 8. Helena, it's Sunday. She's now and find out if her Sunday segment is still live at 6 p.m. There was a pause. Then I'll make it happen." She hung up and closed her eyes. This was reckless. This was public. This was everything she hated. But it was the only way to speak loud enough for Maya to hear her wherever she was. Maya sat alone in her tiny rental car parked just outside the city. Her suitcase was in the trunk. Her phone hadn't buzzed once. She told herself she'd give Helena space. That walking away had been the right thing. But God, it hurt. She had let herself hope. She had let herself feel. And now she was back to the familiar echo of abandonment. The difference was this time she had fallen for someone who had everything and still didn't know how to let herself be loved. Maya sniffed and rubbed her eyes, flipping through stations on the radio just to distract herself. Classical jazz, then static. And then tonight's special segment features an unexpected face. Billionaire Helena Vega, known for her tech empire and fierce privacy, has agreed to a rare live appearance. Let's tune in. Maya froze. Her fingers hovered over the dial. Her heart stopped. Then she turned it up. The studio lights were blinding. The anchor smiled politely, eyes hungry for a headline. Helena sat across from her in a navy suit, hair pulled back tight, but something in her face was different. Open raw. "Miss Vega," the anchor began. "People are wondering why you suddenly agreed to appear on air. Is there something you'd like to address?" Helena nodded. "Yes, there's a rumor about to break about my past about a former partner who's threatening to manipulate the truth for her own gain. Is that rumor true?" "The truth," Helena said slowly, "is that I made mistakes. I trusted someone I shouldn't have. I gave power to the wrong hands. But I did not manipulate. I did not coerce. And I have nothing to hide anymore." The anchor blinked. "That's a bold statement." Helena turned to the camera. "What I do regret is the damage I've caused by staying silent. Not just professionally, but personally." She paused, breathed. Then there's someone I met recently, someone who saw through all of this, all the headlines and walls and fear. She saw me, and I pushed her away because I was afraid that if she really knew me, she'd run. Her voice cracked, but she didn't run. I did, and I'm done running. Maya's breath caught as the radio played on. So, if you're watching this, Helena said, her voice low but sure. I want you to know that I choose you. Not just when it's easy, especially when it's not. I choose your honesty, your chaos, your strength. I choose every part of you that makes me feel like myself again. A beat. Come back to me, Maya. The anchor blinked, stunned. Helena looked directly into the camera. That's all. And then she stood, walked off set. No press release, no cleanup, just truth. Maya didn't even realize she was crying until the windshield blurred. She threw the car into drive and took off. Adrenaline and something else. Hope racing in her blood. She didn't call first. She didn't text. She just drove. 40 minutes later, she was standing in front of Helena's suite door, heartbeat loud in her throat. She raised her fist to knock. The door opened before she could. Helena stood there breathless, barefoot, like she'd been waiting. Maya stared at her. You really said all that on national television. I did. You know how insane that is, right? Insane is letting you walk away thinking I didn't want you. Maya shook her head, half laughing, half crying. I'm still mad at you. I deserve that. You hurt me. I know you can't fix this with a speech. I'm not trying to fix it, Helena said, voice breaking. I'm trying to start over with the truth. Maya's face softened, but her guard was still up. What happens the next time you get scared? I tell you and I let you stay even when every part of me wants to run. Silence fell and then Maya stepped forward slowly measured. I came back, she whispered. I wasn't sure I would. Helena reached for her hand, but you did. Don't make me regret it. Never again. Maya let herself fall into Helena's arms. Awkward and tight and real. Helena's chair didn't matter. Her past didn't matter. Only this did. Only now. Their lips met again. And this time it wasn't tentative. It was full of everything they hadn't said. Every promise, every apology, every spark and scar and second chance wrapped into one breathless kiss. And somewhere between the heartbeat and the silence, Maya whispered, "Don't let me go." And Helena answered, "Not in this life." Helena didn't tell anyone where they were going. Not her assistant, not her legal team, not the 2 journalists still camped in her inbox begging for exclusive follow-ups after the interview. For the first time in years, she turned everything off, her phone, her schedule, her walls. It was her idea. She'd looked at Maya that morning, hours after they had finally fallen asleep, tangled in warmth and tension and apology, and said simply, "Let's go somewhere, just us." Maya didn't ask questions. She just packed a bag. They drove north toward the cliffs toward quiet. Helena handled the route, programmed every stop into the car's GPS. The trip had been in her mind for years. A remote cabin on the coast once used for investor retreats before she stopped doing the whole corporate bonding charade. It was isolated, soundproofed, surrounded by trees and salt air. No press, no demands, no Vivian, just space and Maya. The road twisted around fog-covered hills as they climbed, the ocean flashing in glimpses through pines. Maya rolled the windows down halfway, letting in the cold breeze, her hand reaching for Helena's on the console without a word. Helena glanced sideways, catching the wind in Maya's hair, her face relaxed in a way she hadn't seen since that first night at the wedding. "You're really not going to tell me where we're going?" Maya asked eventually. "I'm kidnapping you," Helena said. "It's a very glamorous hostage situation with leather seats and homemade playlists. I have standards and snacks. Obviously, then I surrender." Maya leaned over and kissed her cheek. It was so easy in that moment, so light. But Helena knew what was waiting under the surface. She had spent too long building herself out of secrets. And even with Maya beside her, even with her choosing to stay, there was still one truth she hadn't told her. Not because she didn't trust her, but because the words had become sharp over time, fragile, dangerous. She told herself she'd find the right moment. When the cabin came into view, nestled between pines and fog like a secret, Maya whistled low. "Okay, now I'm impressed. Takes a fortress to disarm a general," said. "And you're a general of self-preservation?" "Absolutely." Inside, the cabin was warm wood and glass with a fireplace already prepped and windows that stretched from floor to ceiling. Maya dropped her bag and turned in place, taking it all in. Is this where you hide when the world gets too loud? I never hid here, Helena said. I worked here, strategized, built, and now I want to learn how to be quiet in it. Maya walked over to her and rested a hand on the back of Helena's neck, thumb brushing the base of her hair. Then, let's make it quiet together. For the next 2 days, they did. They cooked together, danced barefoot in the kitchen to vintage playlists, read chapters of the same book out loud under the covers, kissed slowly in front of the fire with no clock ticking behind them. Helena showed Maya how to build a fire. Maya taught Helena how to play the ukulele badly. Helena drifted off with her head pillowed on Maya's thigh and woke to fingers combing her hair and a lullaby she didn't recognize. It should have been perfect. But the secret inside her had grown heavier, pressing against her ribs. She knew she had to tell Maya, she couldn't keep hiding the one thing still lodged between them. She was about to speak when Maya broke the spell first. They were on the back deck, late afternoon sun pooling over a shared blanket, steam curling from mismatched mugs, when Maya said softly, I need to ask you something, and I want the truth. Helena turned, throat tight. Okay. Vivian said she helped you set up offshore accounts, that she laid the groundwork for one of your big acquisitions. Helena's jaw set. She's twisting it. I know, Maya said, but I checked. There's a shadow firm registered in your name, and it traces back to the early years. You've never mentioned it. Why? Helena set her mug down with care. Because it was a mistake, one I buried. Was it illegal? Maya's voice didn't shake. Not accusing, searching. Not technically, Helena said, but close enough that I'm still afraid of it. She stood abruptly, stepping away from the blanket, that cocoon of comfort. Facing the trees, she said, it was a shell company. We ran money through it to speed a merger. I told myself it was strategy, everyone did it. After Vivian left, I tried to shut it down, but she kept part of the trail. Leverage. Insurance. And now I'm exposed, not to a courtroom, but to public judgment. Which can be just as lethal. Behind her, Maya rose, silent for a long beat. Why didn't you tell me? Because I thought if you knew the real me, the corners I've cut, the compromises I've made, you'd leave. So you were going to let me fall for an edited version of you? No, Helena said, turning back. I was going to tell you. I just didn't know how without wrecking everything good between us. You don't ruin things by telling the truth, Maya said, stepping closer. You ruin them by hiding it until it's too late. Helena swallowed. Is it too late? Maya didn't answer at once. Her eyes shone. I don't know. I want to believe you. I do. But I need to know that I'm not just another thing you'll keep in the dark when it gets complicated. Helena reached for her hand. You're not. Then show me. No more filters. No more edits. Just you. Okay. Helena nodded. Okay. But inside she knew it wasn't that simple. Love wasn't a matter of yes or no. It was trust. And trust had to be rebuilt brick by brick. And sometimes the foundation cracked when you weren't watching. As the sun set, they stood together in the silence. The weight of truth between them. It hadn't broken them. Not yet. But the fault lines were there waiting. The silence between them followed them back to the city. It wasn't cruel. It wasn't angry. It was worse. It was careful. Like they were both holding something too delicate to name. Terrified that speaking too loudly might shatter it for good. Helena drove this time, one hand on the wheel, the other resting on her thigh, fingers twitching occasionally like they wanted to reach for Maya, but didn't know how. Maya stared out the window most of the way, her arms crossed tightly against her chest, her jaw set. She hadn't yelled. She hadn't accused. She hadn't left. But she also hadn't touched Helena since that conversation on the deck. And that absence was louder than any slammed door. They arrived at Helena's penthouse just before sunset. The building loomed like a fortress of glass and steel, tall and cold and painfully impersonal. It was the first time Maya had been there. It didn't feel like home. Not to her, maybe not even to Helena. Inside, everything was pristine. Polished floors, minimalist decor, a view that could swallow the sky, but it was sterile, silent, designed for efficiency, not comfort. Helena watched Maya step through the space like she was studying a museum exhibit. Do you live here? Maya asked quietly. Or just exist here? Both, said neither. I don't know anymore. Maya walked to the windows. You've built a world so controlled that nothing can touch you. Not grief, not joy, not even love. Helena's voice cracked. I'm trying to unlearn that. Then you have to let it be messy. You have to let me in. Helena rolled closer, stopping a few feet behind her. I want to. I swear to you, Maya. I've spent so long surviving. I don't always recognize what it means to live. Maya turned. Her eyes were soft but guarded. Then let me show you. But I can't keep knocking on a door that you keep half closed. Helena didn't answer. Because she couldn't promise what she wasn't sure she could deliver. But before either of them could say more, Helena's phone buzzed. Not her personal line. The other one. The encrypted one. Maya noticed the shift in her face immediately. What is it? Trouble? Helena said, swiping the screen. She didn't answer the call. She opened a secure file. Read. Went pale. Vivian just filed a formal complaint with the board of my holding company for what? Misuse of funds. Manipulation of company assets. She's claiming emotional coercion during the merger process. Is there any proof? No. But it doesn't matter. Her timing is perfect. We're in the middle of a tech acquisition that could implode if this goes public. Maya stepped closer. What do you need? Helena stared at her. I need to bury this fast. Quietly. I need to call my crisis team and stop this story from leaking. And what about the truth? Maya asked. What about everything you said on that broadcast? That you were done hiding? This isn't hiding. This is damage control. No, Helena, Maya said, voice rising. This is fear again. You don't understand what's at stake. Then make me understand. Helena's temper snapped. My entire empire, Maya. Everything I've built. Hundreds of employees, billions in contracts. If this scandal breaks, I lose everything. What about me? Maya whispered. Do you lose me, too? Helena froze. What if I can have both? The words slipped out before she could stop them, and Maya's face crumpled. Then, I'm already gone. She grabbed her bag. Helena reached for her. Wait, no, Maya said, stepping back. I love you, Helena, but I won't compete with your empire. I won't fight for space next to a woman who keeps choosing control over connection. It's not a choice. It always is. And then she was gone. The door clicked shut. Helena sat there, the weight of her silence pressing down like stone. Her phone buzzed again. Her crisis team, her lawyer, her COO, all wanting answers, all wanting strategy, all wanting Helena Vega, the woman who always had a plan. But for the first time, Helena didn't have one because all she could see was Maya walking out of the room like she'd finally run out of reasons to stay. That night, Helena didn't sleep. She didn't speak. She didn't answer a single call. She sat in the dark in a penthouse that echoed like a cave, staring at the door and praying that maybe, just maybe, it would open again. It didn't. Helena Vega wasn't used to silence. Not at first. What killed her was the sound. The click of Maya's heels fading down the hall. The chime of the elevator swallowing her. The muted slam of the lobby door echoing all the way up to the penthouse. That was the moment it happened. That was the moment Helena realized she hadn't just lost a woman. She'd lost her compass, her center, her reason. She sat in the dark long after the last of the daylight vanished behind the skyline. Her phone buzzing every few minutes with new demands, new threats, new fires she was expected to extinguish. But she didn't move. Not when her lawyer called to say Vivian's statement had leaked. Not when the press began circling like sharks. Not when the board sent a formal inquiry. Not when hashtags with her name began trending again. This time next to words like manipulator and fraud. She didn't move, because none of it mattered. None of it, not without Maya. At 4:17 a.m., her assistant finally punched through on the emergency override. Helena, I need you to answer, the voice came, urgent, breathless. They're talking about pulling your board seat. The acquisition's on ice. Your CFO just quit. Tell me what you want to do. Helena stared out at a city that used to bow to her name. Then she spoke. Let it fall. I'm sorry, what? Let it fall. The words tasted like freedom and ash. Cancel everything. Shut it down. I'm done fighting for something that never loved me back. Helena, she ended the call. Then she powered off her phone entirely. For the first time in more than a decade, Helena Vega disconnected. Without ceremony, without press, without witnesses, she packed one bag, walked out of the penthouse, and vanished. Maya didn't cry when she left. Not at first. She drove home with the windows down, throat tight, mind loud. She rewound every moment, every kiss, every promise, every wall, and around midnight she sat on her floor with Helena's book in her lap, the sticky note tucked between pages, and broke. Not because Helena didn't love her, but because she did, and couldn't love herself enough to let it matter. Maya didn't know what cut deeper, that Helena had chosen fear again, or that Maya had finally stopped chasing. For 3 days, she went dark. Phone off. No to her brother's invitations. Ignored her mother's calls. She worked, slept badly, wandered the market and stared at fruit she didn't buy. Everything felt muted, unfinished, until day 4. The morning news blared, Vega steps down. Empire in freefall. Maya's spoon clattered. The anchor's tone was cool, clinical. After days of silence, Helena Vega had resigned as CEO, effective immediately. No severance. No interviews. A signed statement left behind. Some legacies are built on silence. I'd rather start over with truth. Maya rose slowly, breath caught. Hands trembling, she checked her phone. No missed calls, no texts, only the echo of their last night. Then she saw it, a letter in her mailbox, no return address, her name written in Helena's unmistakable hand. Her heart lifted and sank at once. She tore it open. Maya, if you're reading this, it's because I couldn't find the courage to say these words while you were still within reach. You asked me once what I wanted. I never answered, because wanting has always terrified me. I want you, your stubbornness, your softness, your truth. I want to wake with your hair in my face and your laugh in my kitchen. I want to spend the rest of my life unlearning everything that taught me love was weakness. I want to make space for you in a life I never thought I'd share. And if I have to burn my name to the ground to do that, I will. Because the empire was built to protect me. But you made me feel alive. If you're willing, I'll be at the mural. The one where the women hold hands in the sunlight. The one you said made you feel like love could be art. I'll wait until sunset. No pressure, no expectations, just truth. Maya didn't grab her coat. She didn't check the time. She just ran. The sun was low when she reached the wall. The city buzzed behind her, loud and unaware. But there at the base of that mural, Helena sat. No security, no headlines, just her. Dressed in soft denim and a loose black sweater, her hair slightly windswept, eyes locked on the painted hands at the center of the mural. She looked so human, so quiet, so completely undone. Maya stopped a few feet away. You left the empire. Helena turned. Her face lit up with relief, with fear, with everything she hadn't let herself feel before. I had nothing left to fight for if it meant losing you. Maya stepped closer. You really were going to let it all burn? It was already burning, Helena whispered. Stocks dropped. The acquisition dissolved entirely. Her board released a statement that used cold words like transition, review, and ethical concerns. And yet, Helena didn't hide, not once. She and Maya stayed quiet, but not silent. They moved together through the storm, choosing privacy without secrecy. Maya painted like she was exorcising ghosts. Helena wrote long, form essays, anonymous blog entries, pieces about legacy, pain, control, the myth of perfection. She stopped hiding in rooms designed to protect her. She let herself be seen. For the first time, truly seen. One afternoon, Maya found her asleep on the studio floor, her cane resting against the wall, open notebooks scattered like petals. She didn't wake her. She just laid down beside her and rested her hand over Helena's chest. The heartbeat was slow, steady, human, and hers. 3 weeks passed, quiet, steady, until the letter came, hand-delivered. Heavy paper, no return address, just Helena's name written in black ink. She opened it on the balcony, Maya beside her, their fingers brushing. Inside, an invitation to speak, a national conference on ethical innovation, former CEOs, tech activists, women in power. It was a panel, one titled Rebuilding After the Fall. The irony made Helena laugh, but Maya read the letter twice, then looked at her. You should do it. Why? Helena asked. I'm not the hero in this story. Because the world needs to see you now. Not as an icon. As a woman who fell, owned it and got back up. What if I say the wrong thing, then you say it and we learn together? Helena stared at the letter. Will you be there? Maya smiled. Front row always. Helena accepted the invitation. They flew out 2 weeks later. The venue was a restored opera house. Glass domes and velvet curtains filled with polished people wearing unspoken expectations. Helena wore black minimalist, no jewelry, no script. She asked Maya to walk with her to the stage entrance. The cane clicked gently against the marble floor. Every step was earned. "You good?" Maya asked. Helena looked at her. "Ask me again when I'm off that stage. Deal?" The auditorium buzzed. Cameras pointed. The lights were too bright. Helena stepped up to the podium and stood for a moment. Her hand steadying against the edge. The crowd waited, then she began. "I used to believe power meant never having to say the words, I was wrong." A ripple moved through the room. "I used to think control was the same thing as safety, that silence was strength, that being untouchable was something to be proud of." She paused. "Let it land. But the truth is, silence is a prison. And the moment I started building walls to keep the world out, I also locked myself inside." She spoke for 11 minutes about ambition, about fear, about the woman who made her want to live instead of just survive. She didn't name Maya, but she didn't need to. It was in every word, every pause, every crack in her voice that she didn't bother to hide. When she finished, the crowd stood. Maya clapped the hardest. That night, after the dinner, after the press, after the whispered, "She's changed" comments in the hallway. Helena and Maya returned to the hotel room and said nothing for a long time. They just held each other, bare feet on the rug, wine untouched on the table. Then pulled a small box from her bag. Simple black velvet. Maya blinked. "I'm not proposing," said yet. "I'm not ready for that. Not yet. But I want to give you this." She opened the box. Inside was a ring, silver, understated, engraved with one word on the inside. "Stay." Maya's breath caught. "You want me to wear this?" "Only if you want to," Helena said softly. "It's not a symbol of ownership. It's not a promise I won't mess up. It's just a reminder that I'm not running anymore. That when I get scared, I'll reach for you instead of my silence." Maya took the ring, slid it on. It fit. Of course, it did. "I'm still mad at you sometimes," she whispered. "I know, and I'm still scared of how much I need you." "Me, too," Maya leaned in. "But I'm not going anywhere." "Good," Helena said, kissing her. "Because next time I am proposing." "Terrifying." Maya whispered against her lips. "But I'll think about saying yes. Take your time forever if I have to. I've got time now." They laughed. Kissed again. And somewhere in the quiet between one kiss and the next, Helena finally believed it. She hadn't lost everything. She'd finally found something that couldn't be taken away. Something hers. Something real. 1 year later, the world had moved on. But Helena hadn't. Not from her. Not from them. She didn't need to. Maya was still beside her, breathing the same morning air, drinking the same bitter coffee, whispering the same sarcastic remarks when interviews got too self-congratulatory. They had rebuilt slowly, brick by honest brick. No shortcuts, no illusions. There were still scars on both of them. Helena still froze sometimes when her phone buzzed unexpectedly. Maya still got quiet when Helena closed herself off in thought for too long. But they had learned to name it, to talk, to touch instead of retreat, to hold instead of control. Maya's art had exploded. The gallery show sold out. Magazines wanted interviews. Collectors bid numbers Maya laughed at because they felt ridiculous. She painted with the kind of freedom recognized. The freedom of someone who had finally stopped apologizing for taking up space. Helena, meanwhile, stayed quiet by design. She consulted for nonprofits, taught a few private lectures, wrote. Her essays were taught in classrooms now, dissected by students who once would have worshipped her empire. She didn't miss it, not even a little. One evening, they sat side by side on the rooftop of their shared apartment. No penthouse, just a small place with creaky floors and a view of the river. Maya held a letter in her hands. She hadn't opened it yet, but Helena already knew what was inside. "Paris," Maya said, finally, voice quiet. 2-year residency. They want me to help curate a new collection and run workshops for local artists. And it's everything I ever dreamed of. Helena nodded. "Then go." Maya turned sharply. "That's it. You're not going to ask me to stay. Do you want me to?" "I don't know." Maya's voice cracked. "Part of me wants you to fight for this for us." Helena reached out and took her hand. "I'm not fighting against your dreams to keep you in mine. I promised I'd never be the reason you stayed small. You're not, but I could be." If I ask you to stay when the world's asking you to fly. It's not the world I care about, Maya whispered. It's you. I'll be here when you're done. Or when you want me to visit, or if you want me to come with you. You'd move to Paris. I'd follow your voice anywhere, but only if it's you asking. Not your guilt. Maya leaned her forehead against Helena's. I don't want to lose you. You won't. I'm not going anywhere. Even if we're not in the same place. And what if the time apart breaks us? Helena smiled softly. Then it wasn't strong enough to begin with. But I think we are. Maya didn't speak for a long time. The sky was dark by now. Stars beginning to peek through. Then she whispered, will you still wear the ring? Helena raised her left hand, silver glinting faintly in the city light. I never took it off. Maya kissed her. Slow, gentle, final, but not ending. A beginning in disguise. 1 month later, they said goodbye at the airport. No drama, no scene, just a kiss that lingered too long and a promise spoken in 2 words. Come back, Maya did. Not right away, but she called every day. Sent voice notes of rain against Paris windows, pictures of her studio, her paint-splattered hands, the cafes she wanted to see. Helena wrote her letters, old-fashioned pages filled with words she didn't always say out loud. On Maya's birthday, Helena flew to Paris with no announcement and showed up at the gallery with a single sunflower and an expression that said, "You are still my favorite work of art." Maya cried. They made love that night like discovering each other for the first time. And when Helena breathed, "Marry me," Maya answered, "Yes." 3 years later, they traded vows in a garden awash with every color Maya had ever painted, every story she'd ever told. Helena didn't walk the aisle. She rolled with pride, her chair dressed in ivy and yellow silk. Maya met her halfway. Side by side, rings already warm in their palms, their hands trembled together. No speeches, only a promise, quiet and sure, whatever comes next, we choose it together. That was enough. Not a fairy tale, a life, honest, imperfect, luminous, and theirs. If you enjoyed this and want to support the channel in a special way, consider tapping the thanks button below, the heart with a $sign. With super thanks, you can contribute directly and help me keep making videos for you.